Hi, everyone. I'm here with Charlotte. Charlotte is a student of the Socratic experience, and I'm here to have a little conversation about TSE and what is it like to be a student at TSE. Charlotte, thank you so much for doing this. First of all, how are you? Are you
I'm
okay?
great. Yeah.
Perfect. You had a tornado on your zone recently, right? Is
Yeah,
as
it was like
that
a
like
hurricane.
an hurricane? Yeah. Is that like all already gone?
So we're still getting some like rain from it, but the hurricane itself has passed.
Okay, so if hopefully we don't get like any cuts in the internet or something like that. Perfect. Okay, so Charlotte, as you know, we're here to talk a little bit about your journey as a TSC student. And so my first question is, tell us about how did you heard about TSC? Like how did you ended up here in our school?
So my mom actually was listening to a podcast that Michael had been a guest on, and she heard about the school from him, and then she brought it up to me and my brother, saying, "Okay, this is an online school. Would you like to try it?" And I said, "Heck no, no way. There's no way to be in an online school and like have a good time." And like when I heard about it, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be on a screen, and I'm just gonna talk to a bunch of strangers that I've never met before." And then I'm never going to talk to them again. Sounds terrible. And then we kind of started with a shadow day. And then by the end of the day, after I'd gone into a humanities class and a STEM class, I was like, I have to enroll here. This is great.
So that's so interesting. Why that strong reaction? Why were you so like against being in an online school?
So I've actually done a few online courses in the past for a few different subjects. And I despised all of them because there was just no like structure for me personally because it was very self-based and I didn't
Mhm.
really jive with that. And so I would kind of just log on to a class once a week, do the work, and then just completely move on and forget about it until the next week. And it
Okay.
just never really ended. And so I was like, well, this is going to be no different.
That's so interesting. So what made you change your mind? Like what happened during the classes that made you think, well, I need to be here?
I honestly think it was just like the great environment and the relationship between like the students with each other. Just the way the conversations went, like it wasn't just a super awkward situation where everybody's just kind of out of it and disengaged. Everybody was like talking and having a great time, and everybody was like the energy was so high, and
Hmm.
it still was a productive conversation. Like I still remember exactly what we did in that day that I shadowed, and it
Really?
was just
Well,
great.
yeah. Because I feel like if I understand what you're saying is it's a great example for people that for students that may be somehow reluctant to enter at the SEs that you should at least try a shadow day so you can understand because you can think about online school and think about what that looks like, but then you go through the actual experience of being part of the SE and you understand, oh, maybe that's different from what I was expecting. So you were mentioning the actual environment, like just out of curiosity, what did you talk about in those classes?
So interestingly enough, in the morning class, I had humanities in the morning, and we were reading nonviolent communication, and I remember exactly what that was talking about, and how we were talking about how we shouldn't yell at people because that doesn't like get a message across. And then we like had like five people going back to back, almost yelling at each other about this topic, and it was just a really like great experience just to watch them converse about the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's part of also what you're saying is like there's this high energy around classes where a lot of times when you think about online school, you think about like this Zoom meeting where you have a lot of different people in it, and basically everyone is silent, no one talks about, and there's like a lot of awkward silences, and then you join like a good class at TSC and suddenly everyone is engaged, everyone is talking about the and everyone is asking questions. So that's definitely a different online experience from a lot of schools. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your day. One of the questions that we get asked a lot by people that are on the verge of actually going to TSC or not is like, well, describe me like a student day. And there's no one better to actually explain to us that than a student. So tell us, like, what's your day-to-day look like?
Okay. So I live in Central Time, so class starts on like the scheduled time for me. So every morning I go to community at 9:30, which I know a lot of people don't go to community, but I don't understand why. It's great. Everybody is like there. We have a really good group every single day, and we have a lot. Like I think I've presented a few times in community, and it's just a
Can,
great experience to go.
yeah. Can you explain what community is for people that are listening that have no idea what you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So basically community, like every morning at 9:30, like some people will log on to this one meeting and for 10 minutes we'll listen to music and then for about 15 minutes starting at 9:40, we'll all kind of just there's usually around 30-40 people there and we'll have a student host and we'll have a faculty host and the student host will give a presentation on anything under the sun, whether it's something they're doing, a project they're projecting, and just cool things that they're interested in. So it's always really interesting to learn about somebody else and something else that they're interested in. And then we'll have like, Q&A and we'll just talk about random things. Like we'll talk about the national days, historical things that happened on the day, which is always interesting to hear about. And it's just a really interesting, like, just morning conversation. Like if you were to go to a school and you're just talking to your friends in the hallway, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about community meeting is, so it's the aspect of you can either you can do two things. You can listen to the students presenting the topic that they like about, but you also, as you were saying, like if you were at a physical school, you would talk with your friends in the hallway, and you can do that through the chat. So sometimes what happens is you have a lot of conversation in the chat about whatever is happening in that day. You have the student presenting as well. And you mentioned like national days, and that was something that I really enjoyed last year. Is just having like all of these random national days being presented, like, oh, today's like the national day of cookies. So get a cookie, and then everyone on our community is trying to get cookies and sharing it on Slack, which is the platform that we use to have a community. And so that's also it's always a fun way to start your morning. Okay, so you end community at 9:55. Then what happens?
So then I go to my first class, which I have humanities in the morning, and that's a 2-hour class. So from 10 to 12, I'm in humanities, which is amazing, obviously. But yeah, my guide is Leah. So I'll spend 2 hours in that class and then I'll have an hour lunch break. Usually I'm making ramen because I don't know how to make anything else. And then from 1 to 3, I have STEM with Clifton. And then I did an amazing job of not stressing myself out this year. I have so many daily classes because 30 minutes after my STEM class, I have Spanish. And then right after that, I have purpose and well-being. And then on Wednesdays, when I don't have humanities and STEM, I have creative photography, personal finance, Spanish, and person looking.
Well, that's a busy schedule. And so for people that are listening to, what happens with us is that all during the week you have two major classes, STEM and humanities, or humanities and STEM, depending on your cohort. And you may have some extra classes, but then on Wednesday we have electives where you basically can pick a class out of a bunch of different ones with a lot of different topics. So why did you pick the electives that you did?
So I picked for personal finance because that's just something that I feel like me as a person, I need to be able to, know how to budget, how to do taxes, things like that, that are just like, priorities in my mind. Things that I'm like, I should learn how to do that. I should learn what this is all about. So I signed up for that elective. And then creative photography. I have a camera and I've had a camera for like a year and a half and I just never learned how to use it. And so I really was interested in like finding like reasons to use it. And then we signed up for electives and I was like, oh, we have a photography elective. I'm gonna take that because that seems awesome. So now I have things to take pictures of. I know how to use my camera and I get to see everybody else's in my classes, like all their pictures and all their projects, which is even better.
Yeah, and one of the things that we try to do in electives, and I'm not sure what electives did you take last year, but we have both like those more intellectual classes or more abstract classes like purpose and well-being. Uh, in fact, purpose and well-being is like abstract into reality, right? You're trying to talk about all of these ideas around purpose, but you're trying to find out how can you act upon them. But you have maybe like philosophical games or something like that, where students that are more intellectual enjoy going to those. But then you have practical electives like finances and photography, like you were mentioning. Yeah, so you just walk us through your schedule, which is great. Let's talk about your actual personal experience at TSE. So going back to the experience today, you tried the experience today, you join us, and you've been with us ever since. How long have you been at TSE?
This is my second year.
Perfect. So after like the first year, what made you going wanting to come back to TSE? What was it about the first year where you decided, well, I want to, I'm really sure that I want to keep going to that particular school?
Honestly, it was probably the people and the environment because you can learn anything in the whole world on any platform. You can read books, you can find ways to learn things, but you can't have like these relationships with people by yourself. And if you keep changing your environment. So when I started at TSE, like it was just like, bang, this is a big community of a lot of people that are so diverse, but so open to being like in a relationship with everybody here. And so like when I decided to come back this year, it was like, well, this is my school now. This is like my people. These are the people that are like so different from me, but that like this is how I learned with other people. Is like being around so many different people. And it's just like I can't not learn anything. And it's just such a productive and great and creative environment. And I feel like as a
Mhm.
person, like being around so many different like ideologies and ways of life, it's just so beneficial to be able to see so many aspects of one thing.
Yeah, because to some students they come in because they enjoy the curriculum, but others not only the curriculum but the actual community aspect of TSC. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how how is it that at TSC we like cultivate this community of students?
Well, obviously, we use Slack a lot. And me personally, I have Slack on my phone because I don't like missing messages. So I am constantly online in Slack talking to people because that's what I do. I talk to people, I reach out to everybody when they're like, I just want quiet time. No, I'm messaging you constantly. And that's like probably my favorite thing to do is like outside of class, like make, in all of our group chats, talk about projects, talk about different things that we were doing in class, continuing conversations that we were having in class and uh, just taking the things that we talk about in class and then bringing them back just into our lives.
Mhm.
That's probably like the most common thing that we do because you can't just end class at the end of class because that's just boring. So I like to continue everything we talk about outside of class. And I try to attend every single meeting that there is to attend. Like community, I try to make it to that every morning because it's just another opportunity to talk to all these people. And it's my favorite part of TSE, being able to talk to all these people.
Mhm. So if let's say that a student is like, well, okay, I want to join TSC, but like I don't know how to make friends online. Like, what are the things that you particularly do that make you like feel like you have this community and you have these friends online? Like, what are the practices that a student should do in order to feel like they're part of this community and they're able to establish these online friendships?
I just recommend like putting yourself out there because we have so many different opportunities to interact with certain groups of people. Like again, like we have community, we have so many different clubs for you to join. And if you join one of those clubs, they're so specific that no matter what, if you join a club, you will be friends with everybody in there because it's just such a specific interest. So you kind of have to be friends with everybody because you all have that one interest. But yeah, definitely just putting yourself out there, like joining different channels, talking to people, because most of the time when people are checking Slack, it's just like you see somebody's name pop up, you know who they are, you've seen their name before, so they answer. There's no reason for them to not answer, and nobody has ever just left me on red, because everybody here loves to talk to other people because this is what we do. So definitely just put yourself out there, join channels, join clubs, reach out to people that you find interesting, which will not be hard because we have a lot of interesting people. And just definitely being social in class, like being a big participant, talking in class, making sure people know you exist, just by saying a word, being visible, just participating in the online culture will automatically make you a part of it.
Yeah, and it's like it's like you mentioned, like so because we have so many people, like the way we do things at TSE is through conversation, right? Most of your classes are conversations, are Socratic dialogues where you're trying to understand different points of view, you're exploring deep questions. And so it's almost like if you're part of TSE, there's a part of you that enjoy conversation and that it's open to conversation, right? And a lot of times new students, what they need to do, and people that somehow are reluctant around online school, but once they get into TSE, just once you put yourself out there, as you were saying, you'll quickly find people that somehow resonate with you because everyone here is open to having conversations. And that's part of also what you mentioned before, where we have students from all over the world with different ideologies, with different backgrounds. And it's so interesting. Like one of the things that I really enjoy in my own classes is sometimes we discuss one thing that I thought, well, it's obvious that this particular theme is the right point of view, quote unquote, should be X. Then people, because they have so many different experiences and they have so many different ideologies and religions in different countries, they will have very interesting but very different points of view. And that's how you grow at TSC. And that's how you learn, right? You're listening to all these different perspectives. You're taking into consideration all of them. You're also comparing them with your own worldview, and you're growing out of that, which I believe is such a very awesome learning experience. You mentioned clubs. Can you expand a little bit on that? Like, can you tell us a little bit about clubs at TSC?
So basically, we have probably more clubs than I can count. But basically, with every club, you have a student host or multiple student hosts, and you have a faculty host, because we need a responsible adult. Otherwise, we would probably burn the club down. But just to name a few clubs off, last year we had the Literacy and Poetry Club. I don't know if that one's still going. We have a cooking club. That's actually my club. And we're getting a few new clubs this year. I know that there's going to be a signature club, which basically that's about finding yourself, in a
Mhm.
few different aspects. But just to name a few, that's a few of our clubs. And in each club, there's a good amount of people. There's not like any clubs that are kind of trickling. We have a really good base of people that are interested in clubs and that frequently uh, attend clubs. So if you want to start a club, do that because that's that's just something that I feel like everybody is either a part of a club or has started a club. If you have something that you're interested in, that you're curious to see if other people are interested in, definitely start a club. And if you're curious to see if we have a club for something that you're already interested in, we probably already have it.
Mhm.
But I find it's a really endearing experience to be able to start a club or join a club and be around so many people that have that same interest.
Yeah, I think that clubs are a great example of the full spectrum of ideas that we have at TSE because there's so many different clubs where if you want to understand like the range of thoughts and ideas and themes around TSE, you just look at clubs and you see, well, we have a cooking club and a chess club, but we also have spirituality club, we also have Dungeons and Dragons club, we also have like reading and poetry club. So there's so many different things where as a student you can come into this environment and just pick whatever excites you and you'll meet people that are also excited about that and you'll create relationships out of that. So Yeah. So let me ask you something. Um, Going back to the actually taking a step back out of the community aspect of TSC, um, what is it about our school that's different from all of the other learning experience that you had?
Definitely that it's conversation based and that it's not like a lecture. It's more like definitely just a conversation on a topic, which I know we use that example a lot whenever we're talking about class, but that's really what it is. And that's something that I'd never experienced before coming to TSC. And it was just such a different experience, not having like a teacher that was lecturing us for 2 hours, but being able to interact and share our thoughts and formulate our own opinions on something and being able to talk to each other about those opinions and just get like an idea of what we're talking about and being able to really understand it in a way that is our own because that's how we discover what we actually believe in and what we actually think is right and how we reach these conclusions is being able to talk about them and ask questions and being able to see how other people view something. Definitely getting more than one opinion in a room. That's such an incredible experience. And that's just something that I don't think a lot of people get to experience. And it was incredibly new for me, especially being able to, join a classroom and be able to have my own opinions.
Let me ask you something. So let's say the student just listened to this and he or she is thinking, well, that sounds amazing, but like practically, what does that look like? So can you walk us through, like you were just mentioning that we learn through conversation, but like is that enough to learn like what goes what's the process of an actual class in TSE? Can you walk us through that?
So normally, I'll use humanities as an example because that's a very broad subject.
Mm-hmm.
We'll usually have a painting or a piece of a text, or something that's like very concrete that we can all look at, and then we'll read through that text or we'll look at that painting, and then we'll just break out and be like, okay, what's happening here? What do we all think? What is this? And that's when the conversation really gets started. And when people are like, well, that right there is really interesting. What is that about? Or this is what I think this is about. And then we'll kind of go from there. And there is no real like path for us to take. So we kind of have to just make the conversation go because there's nowhere we're really supposed to be heading. It's just kind of where we end up. That's where we end up. This is what we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
which is incredibly. It's really fun,
Yeah.
um, and it gives us a lot of freedom, definitely. So there's a lot of question asking, usually about very different things. Like we'll talk about what does that sentence mean right there? Why does that correlate with this? What do these two have to do with each other? A lot of things like that, and asking questions and talking about what things that each other are saying. Um, that's probably one of the more what's the word I'm looking for? It has much more momentum whenever we're talking about something that
Mm-hmm.
other people are talking about in the conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
we'll obviously have a text or a painting or something that we're looking at, and then we'll take that and start having our own conversation about it. And that's always where the most growth happens is when we're talking about each other's opinions and kind of comparing those, finding middle ground, finding what is like morally or factually correct. And
Mm-hmm.
that's usually where this conversation goes. And obviously we have our guides that will kind of rein things back in if we get too off topic, and they'll be like, okay, so taking that, what does this have to do with this? Or that's really similar to what this says right here.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely just keeps us grounded so that we stay on what we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah. And one of the things that I found fascinating, so last year I was a guide, and one of the things I found fascinating is that you can read through a paragraph. And as a guide, I would go over that and I would think, well, the main idea around this paragraph is this particular one, and that's what students want to discuss. And then I would show the paragraph to students, and suddenly there would be like four different things that people wanted to talk about. I was like, okay, so my own preconception around what people wanted to talk about was just based on my own worldview, where in fact in this paragraph there's so many different things to explore. And I feel like that's part of the learning experience that you only get in a school like TSE, because if that class revolved around what I thought was the most interesting thing as a guide, it would be a good class. But it's way more interesting if we're exploring all of these different topics, because all of these different people are interested in them. So it's a more complete experience. Whereas, as you were saying, like a lot of times when you have typical schools, you have lectures around one topic, and lectures on their own nature, they lack freedom. Like you're listening to someone talk about something that you want. Whereas here in TSC, you have freedom to explore whatever topic you feel like it's interesting based on the resource that we're either reading or looking at or listening to. There's classes where we read text, others we look at paintings, others we will like look at movies or podcasts or videos, and based on that have those kinds of conversations. So Charlie, let me ask you something completely different. A lot of students that I've talked with, they say that they like our school, they like TSE, or they really love TSE. But when we were talking about you doing this interview, you told me that you felt proud of our school. Why is that? Why do you feel proud about TSE as a student?
Well, I should have thought about that before I came in, but that's a really broad question. There's just so many factors, and it's just so deeply rooted that I really do love the school and I love all the people here. Um, but I'm always really excited to talk about TSE. Like I had an experience a few weeks ago when I went to a social event in our town, and a lady was asking me what I do for school, and I said, "Let me tell you." And then I talked about the school for 2 hours to this one lady, and she loved it. And she was like, "Gosh, I wish this had been around when my kids were young, because her kids are grown now, but they were homeschooled." And she
Mhm.
was like, "That's really great. That's really different." And I was like, "Yes, it is." Because I think that's what it is. Like it's so different from every other like learning experience that I've ever like witnessed, is that that's why it stands out, is that it's a personalized, like self-based way to learn that has so many opportunities to be able to connect with other people and other like well, I use the word opportunities, but just other ways to look at things and ways to view the world and ways to find out like what you want to do in the world. And that's a really big thing for me, is that like since coming to TSE, I have so many more like ambitions and like future prospects for what I want
Mhm.
to do and how I want to contribute to the world. And I think that's like one of the biggest things, is that like
Mhm.
I feel like I found a way that I can learn that's not pressured and that's not somebody else's way to learn.
That's so interesting. So, what was it about TSE or about your experience here that made you more ambitious and have more opportunities?
Probably other students be like accomplishing great things, knowing that that is
Mm.
possible, that knowing that like other kids my age are doing all these great things because of what they're interested in and what they're good at, being able to hone that and finding a way to benefit the people around them or make a business out of it or find something to do with it that like makes the world better. And that is just so inspiring to be around your own classmates and then be like, guess what I did yesterday? And then they just start talking about how they like did this great thing, and then you're just like, oh well, that's really neat, and this is just something you did on your computer because you were really interested in it, or you went out and did this in your backyard. Like we have one student, he just makes knives for fun and he's great at it, and it's really interesting to see, like because this is a real skill that somebody can just do, and you're like, well,
Mhm.
I have great things too. Like I can do something. Like, I can find a way to benefit the world around me, to benefit myself, to benefit a business. Like
Mm.
there are opportunities for me that I didn't see until I saw other people taking initiative to make those opportunities happen for themselves.
Absolutely. That's such a good question. Okay, Charlotte, I have three quick questions before we go. First, let's say that you're talking with a parent that's on the verge of actually signing up their kid about TSE. What is the one thing that you would tell them to so they would sign up their kid in our school?
Honestly, I would probably tell them the same thing that I talked about in the very beginning, like finding a home and finding a community and a bunch of people that make you feel like even though you're all different, like we all have our own ways of thinking, and that's the most powerful thing that you have. That your own ideologies and your potential like makes the world a better place and it makes a community better because if you're learning how to use your own abilities and your own brain and your mind, like there's no limit to what you can do. And finding other people that also think like that, that are also trying to figure that out, um, and learning alongside those people, that's one of the most valuable things that we have here. And it truly is a great experience and it's a safe place for everyone to come and not be judged for their own opinions, but to be like respected and be an individual for those.
That's such a beautiful answer. Is there anything that you would add to that if you were instead of talking with the parent, you were talking with the student that's on the verge of joining TSE?
Honestly, I think my answer remains the same most ways around. But honestly, if like when new people join, I love being friends with people. I will be your friend. I know so many people will want to be your friend because there's a person for everybody. I will forever stand by that, that there's certain people for every person. So definitely like if you're looking for a community and you're looking for your own people, that even if you're not all the same, you have those people to kind of fall back on and lean on and learn from. This is your place. This is the place.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, Charlotte, this was amazing. Last question before we go. What's something that you're looking forward this year at TSE?
Probably my personal project at the end of the year. Last year, I kind of struggled with it. But this year, I have so many things that I want to do with it. And I'm like, well, that's at the end of the year. This is going really well. Like, I already feel like I'm finding like a purpose for something that I want to do in the future and being able to make that happen. It just, I don't know, it makes the world seem much more concrete and I'll use the word conquerable, like I can make my own world and it's just something that I'm really looking forward to being able to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, well, that was such a beautiful answer. Charlotte, thank you so much for doing this. To everyone listening to it, to this, you should join the SC if you're a student. If you're a parent, you should have your kids sign up, even if it's just to meet people like Charlotte, who are extremely open to making sure that everyone has the best experience at TSC. And you can do that by going to thesocraticexperience.com and you can download your parent guide. You can schedule a call with one of our admissions team to make sure that we're the right fit for your child. Charlotte, thank you so much. Any last notes, any last message that you want to say before we wrap this up?
Just thank you so much for having me. And I really hope this was valuable to people out there. I really look forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, it definitely was. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video.